What are human rights? Think about this question, pause this video at this moment, think about this question and put your answers down in the comment section. I'm very sure the answers would be very different and you would be justified to ask me that why do I want to talk about human rights out of the blue? Well, my justification is that on the account of NHRC Foundation Day, that is National Human Rights Commission Foundation Day, the chairperson of the commission, former Justice Arun Mishra, our Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Home Minister Amit Shah made speeches on human rights. Now, I went through these speeches but I could not find the essential idea and the paramount importance evolution of human rights. Therefore, I want to take this opportunity to talk about this concept, this very important concept of international relations as well as of geopolitics. So let's understand human rights. Let's get down to the video. My name is Ishan Fauzdar and you are watching the Upfront. At the outset, let me make it very clear that human rights is a very debatable and a very controversial subject, and anything and everything that I say and explain in this video should be and can be and should be scrutinized. Stating that, let's get started. The best way to understand human rights, or for that matter any phrase, is to break down that phrase into its fundamental elements. Human rights is made up of human and rights. Human we know, the meaning of human we obviously know. The meaning of right we may not. So let's understand what a right is, and I'll be giving a very generic definition. Rights are claims. Rights are intrinsically claims that are made by the citizens or by any person, by any population, that are further ratified by the law to give it legal force. Then it becomes a law, right? Then a right becomes a law. Now, if I give an example, in India in the 2000s, we had the we as citizens of India demanded or claimed that we want to have the right to know what the government is doing. We made this claim that we want information, we have the right to information. Going ahead, this claim was ratified by the law. It came to be known as the Right to Information Act, RTI, and hence our right to information, what we claimed, became a law. This is what a right is and how a right becomes a law. Intrinsically, rights are, to give an operational definition, rights are claims made by a population that are ratified by law to give it legal force. Now we have the meaning of both the words. Let's put them together. Human rights, that is the claims that are made by humans, that are not made by citizens of any caste, any sex, any gender, that are made by humans and that are further ratified by law. These are called human rights. Now, you would be very justified to ask me if the fundamental rights of our constitution are human rights. The generic answer is yes, but I have a problem with this answer, because some of the fundamental rights, let's say right to life and personal liberty in 21, are given to all humans. It is for everyone. But right to equality under Article 15 is only available to citizens of India, which is not the concept of how a human right works. A human right is a right that we get by the virtue of being a human. A human right is not a right which we have because we are a citizen of a certain country, we belong to a certain strata or certain empire, kingdom, whatever. Human rights are rights we have because we are human and because the nature of us being humans gives us certain rights. That is what a human right is. That is the difference which I want to make. Now you may think that the idea of human rights is very normal and even redundant. We all know about it. But I'm here to argue that we have taken it for granted. To understand the importance of human rights, we need to understand its historical context. And to understand that, let me tell you a story. In the 16th and 17th century, there were two wars which spanned for 80 years and 30 years respectively. And they completely destroyed Europe. Obviously, these wars were called the 80 Years' War and the 30 Years' War, and they could not have been called anything else because that could have generated another war. You may ask why, and the answer is that because these wars were really complex. The 80 Years' War was essentially Netherlands and several other colonies fighting for their independence, but it turned very ugly very quickly when religion got involved and the 80 Years' War transitioned to the 30 Years' War. These are interconnected wars, and hence to say that the 80 Years' War was Netherlands versus someone else, or the 30 Years' War was Catholics versus Protestants, would be a very broad generalization, and it would have the potential to start another war in the historiography scholarship. Therefore, we will leave those two wars at that. I also do not have the liberty to explain such complex wars in such a short span, so we will leave it at that. But then where were we were talking about Europe and wars, right? So these two wars decimated Europe. They destroyed the economy, everyone became super poor. Hence, obviously the kings came together to make peace, and it was decided that every kingdom is sovereign, every kingdom is equally sovereign, and that no kingdom will ever peek into or interfere in the affairs of another kingdom. This entire peace treaty is called the Peace of Westphalia, which is very famous if you have read international relations and history. Now, this idea of sovereignty, of non-interference, was adopted by the modern nation states as well. That every nation is independent and sovereign. The government of the state has the final and ultimate authority within its territory, and that no state should ever peek into or interfere in the domestic matters of other state. This theory or idea of sovereignty is called the monistic absolutist or the Austinian theory of sovereignty, and it was given legal force by the United Nations Charter Article 2 Section 7, if I'm not wrong. So you may now see the picture that the world was divided between us and them. All the nations for itself, there would be no intervention whatsoever, and there was us and there was them. However, during World War II, there was this certain mustached man who was very obsessed with sanitation and cleanliness, and hence decided to clean his country of Jews. Adolf Hitler committed what the world called crimes against humanity. And it is important to note that it was the first time after World War II that all the nation states came together under the common in-group identity of humans to save humanity. The us versus them boundaries dissolved into WEV, and it was recognized that there are certain rights, certain basic rights which cannot be violated, which cannot be taken away in any circumstance or by any authority, by any power. These laws, if these rights were violated, then it would fall upon the international community to protect these. Henceforth, if a state like Myanmar, Rwanda, or Kosovo failed to protect the human rights, failed to protect these rights of the citizens, then the international community would have the responsibility and the obligation to interfere and to protect the citizens. These rights are called the human rights, and these rights are enshrined in the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. And if you read the document, it has concretely defined 30 human rights that we have. You may also observe that with the evolution of human rights, the idea or the model of sovereignty changed. Sovereignty is no more about power or authority, it is more about responsibility. A state is responsible to protect the human rights of its citizens, or else it would face intervention. Therefore, the idea of sovereignty changed, and this new idea is called the popular or the pluralist theory of sovereignty, and it can be traced back to the writings of John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Now, also it is very important to state that the story which I told you, the origin of human rights, is a unidimensional story. there are other aspects to the story as well. For example, human rights is also traced back to the writings of Aristotle, which then stretches onto the writings of John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So there is a philosophical aspect to human rights. There is also a theological aspect to human rights, and this school argues that human rights stem from Judeo-Christian and Buddhist values, which are way older than geopolitics and international relations. My story, the story I told you, was more from the angle of geopolitics and international relations, but you should check out the other aspects of it. But then why does any of this entire historical rant in essence matters? Well, it matters because human rights change the very idea of sovereignty, and we need to realize that the state is responsible for the protection of our human rights. We are no longer living in kingdoms or empires, and the state no longer has the supreme authority or power that it used to have. Today, sovereignty means that the state has the moral and legal obligation to protect our human rights. And if the state is doing so, it is not doing a favor upon us. It is its duty. And therefore, you would understand why why the British diplomat Philip Allott says that the idea of human rights should intimidate governments, or it is worth nothing. If the concept reassures governments, then it is worse than nothing. It is our duty to remind the state and compel the state to protect our human rights, and it is our responsibility to be politically active. And therefore, Hannah Arendt, the famous totalitarian philosopher and who gave the banality of evil, said that totalitarian regimes rise only in the absence of political participation. Therefore, be political and be active. If you like this video, do like our channel, do subscribe our channel, do press the bell icon, and do comment on the video and on the content, the quality of the content, what you think. Thank you, and let's meet in another video.